All right, so we are looking at the second part of the lesson. We're looking at new vocab with X and Y intercepts. The X and Y intercepts are the points where the graph crosses the x-axis and the y-axis, and the opposing variable is 0. So the y-intercept is the point where the graph crosses the x-axis and x is equal to 0. The x-intercept is the point at which the x-coordinate of the graph crosses the x-axis and the y-coordinate is 0. What's wrong? Okay. So we can take real world examples. So we can take equations such as 10x plus 5y equals 40. And we can use that to find our x and y intercepts, as well as find other points and values that would make an equation true. So this says to describe the domain and range and explain what the x and y intercepts represent. So we'll start with the x-intercept, which is the point on the graph where y is equal to 0. So what we'll do to find the x-intercept is plug 0 in for y and solve for x. So in this case, we get x equals 4, and x represents number of dimes. So what that means in terms of explanation is that if this problem is talking about giving change, we have an example where we give 4 dimes and 0 nickels. The y-intercept, conversely then, is the point where x is equal to 0. So you'd have 10 times 0 plus 5y equals 40. So we'd get y is equal to 8. And what that means is that we are giving 0 dimes and 8 nickels. I can also give 1 dime and 6 nickels, 2 dimes and 4 nickels, or 3 dimes and 2 nickels. So when it asks me for my domain and range, I can give 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 dimes. It's not 0 to 4 because we cannot give half a dime. For the nickels or the range, it's 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. There are no odds included in my range because we're not giving back 35 cents. or giving back 40 if I only had dimes and nickels. Okay. Now, as you heard in the song, our goal today is to graph. So we're going to graph equations by finding our x and y intercept and writing our equations in standard form. So we're focusing on rewriting in standard form. So the first thing I'm going to do in example number 1 is get rid of my fraction by multiplying all parts by 3. And then moving over the x. And then we're going to find our x-intercept and our y-intercept. So my y-intercept is at 0, 2. We oftentimes used to use the y-intercept in the past as our starting point. So y-intercept should be very familiar to you. Now, at this time, you could either plot your x-intercept. So you could plot 0, 3.5. Yeah. It was -4 right here. But then I added 4 to the other side. Okay. So then from there, this goes down 2 and over 1.5, or we can go down 4 and over 3. And we have our line. All right, let's look at another one. So again, our goal is to get the lines graphed, but at the same time, I want to make sure you know what the x and y intercepts are and practice getting it into standard form. So in number 2, there is no y-intercept, and we're going to see why in a second. To solve this in standard form, you'd multiply both sides by 4. So you get 4y equals 3x. And then we would say that 0 is equal to 3x plus 4y. And we know that this is symmetric, so that's the same as 3x plus 4y equals 0. And then we'll find our x-intercept and my y-intercept. So we see that the x and y intercept is both at 0, 0. So this is because the y-intercept is at 0, therefore making my x-intercept at 0, meaning my graph starts at the origin. And then you apply your slope, so you go up 3 and over 4. You could also go down 3 and left 4. When graphing, I'd like to see at least 3 points on a line. I don't care what direction you go. Typically, you'll start at your y-intercept and go from there. Okay, and then example number 3. Example number 3 is actually already in standard form. So you'll find your x and y intercepts by plugging in the opposing zeros. So my x-intercept is at -2. So again, what that means is that you're plotting the point -2, 0. And my y-intercept is at -2, which means we're plotting the point 0, -2. And if I look at those points, I'm going down 2, right 2, or down 1, right 1. So again, in 4, you could add that x over to start. So you'd have 1/2 x plus y equals 1/2. And again, we know that in standard form, I can't have fractions. So I multiply everything by 2, which would give me x plus 2y equal to 1. And you could do that at the beginning or at the end. The order with which we multiply or add does not change the problem. Find your x and y intercepts. So the x-intercept is 1. So you have the point 1, 0. The y-intercept is 1/2. So we have the point 0, 1/2. This is a case where having the y-intercept was not very helpful because it was at a 1/2 tick mark. But if you had the x-intercept, you can apply your slope from the x-intercept. So my slope's -1/2. So I can go down 1 and over 2 from that point, as opposed to having to go down 1 and over 2 at the 1/2 tick marks from my y-intercept. So that's why sometimes it is helpful to find both. And just as a reminder, since again, in this unit, we're talking about domain and range. Domain and range of all linear functions is all reals. So all 4 of these graphs that we did on this last page have a domain and range of all reals. All 4 graphs have a domain and range of all reals.